Welcome to the Nerd Party.
It's not working.
How long since you've cleaned the heads?
The what?
The heads. Do you have any alcohol?
To drink?
What? No, to clean it. Check the tracking.
The rental place closes in 2 hours.
Shut up. It's working.
Time for a RetroPerspective.
Hello and welcome to You Can't Kill the Boogeyman, a retrospective look at the Halloween series as we hone in on the release date of Halloween, our reboot sequel, giving us once more the exploits of The Shape. And I am John Mills, and with me, once again, is Matt Hansen. Matt, welcome back to Haddonfield.
I am so excited. Well, let me preface that. I'm excited to be back here talking this podcast with you. Don't know how excited I am to be focusing on this film, but you know what? I think we'll have a good time anyway. There's lots of stuff to break down.
Oh,
and,
yes.
It's still Halloween, and it's still the Halloween franchise, and lots of exciting stuff is going on as we record this on September 20th.
Yep.
The movie's just had its U.S. premiere at Fantastic Fest, and it had its premiere at Toronto International Film Festival. And by all accounts, from what I've been looking on Twitter, and I've been looking obsessively on Twitter, it's been going over like gangbusters. So I am so excited for this new film.
Yeah, me too. I'm also excited that we're here, as always, on the Nerd Party Network, where we have a whole host of shows. We're doing this special series on Filibuster about Halloween, but of course you can come to the Nerd Party for Harry Potter, Doctor Who, Babylon 5, Star Trek, Star Wars, you name it, Nerd Party's got it. You can go to thenerdparty.com and find all of the shows listed there. You can subscribe to them all in Apple Podcasts, also known as iTunes. And we would love to welcome you to the fold. The Nerd Party is ever growing and ever evolving, so come on down. But you know what? I won't lie. I'm anxious to get to this one, Matt.
Really?
Halloween. I am, because Halloween 5 is something where, when I was younger, was an exciting thing. I remember the ads for it, that they were coming for Michael Myers, and this time they're going to be ready. They had the footage of the cops, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's a big showdown, and it's going to be amazing. And then we got this.
Question for you, John. Is this the first Halloween movie that you have active recall of the advertising, or did you remember 4?
I do not have a solid memory of 4. I do have a memory of Halloween 5's advertising, because the advertising was specifically misleading.
Yes,
because they proposed an actual ending that didn't happen. And if you were to watch the ad now and then watch Halloween 5,
I did.
Right? And like, you think there's going to be this big badass ending, and there's going to be like gunfire, and it's like Guns of the Navarone, Butch and Sundance, everything's going crazy, and no. That doesn't happen at all.
Until you realize that the gunfire with the cops is reused footage from the end of Halloween 4, and then this is back in the age when trailers lied to you straight up. I'm thinking you remember half of those the Next Generation movies for their teaser trailers, they would just reuse shots from the shows and from other shows and from previous movies, and you never could tell because we were all naive. But you go back and look at that, it's like they straight up used a shot out of Voyager. What the hell is that doing in this Next Generation movie?
Yeah, exactly. Anything to cut corners, right? So, speaking of cutting corners, let's just jump right into Halloween 5, which opens up in Halloween tradition with the sequel picking up the same night as what came before. Halloween 2 did it, and Halloween 5 does it.
And, well, really, it opens up on probably the most vicious jack-o'-lantern carving I've ever seen put to film.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, although a minor note of credit to them is that there was a feeling that they were trying to do something jazzier, give it a little bit more energy in the beginning with the theme music and everything. I don't think that it works, but they were at least trying. So, there's that part of me that's like, well, okay, we're trying to freshen things up. I get it. Okay, all right, well, I'll work with you here, And then we see Michael gets shot all over again and go down the well. And as you mentioned last time, They dropped dynamite down the well.
I was going to say they Back to the Future 2'd this opening where
They sure did.
Because that dynamite was nowhere to be found in Halloween at the end of Halloween 4, but lo and behold, there it is. But of course, it is ineffective, and he gets washed away with the river.
Yes, you can't keep a good shape down, especially a good shape that gets picked up by some
hermit.
Okay, I was going to say hobo, but hermit works for me too.
Whatever, he's a hobo hermit, and for the next year between Halloween 88 and when this picks up Halloween 89, Michael lives in a coma with a hermit and his parakeet.
Yes,
whatever parrot.
Yes, a hermit who has thoughtfully put his mask up on the wall.
Yeah, like a coat.
But very importantly, we see Michael's wrist, and something that's going to pay off in Halloween 6.
Pay off is a very generous term.
We see a strange tattoo that is a line. It looks like a teepee. Would that be fair? Looks like a teepee.
It's a vertical line that has like a mountain-looking thing.
Right.
Here we go with the Cult of Thorn. Of course, we don't know that in this movie, but Jesus Christ, wait till we get to the fever dream of the next film.
Hey, that we will definitely get to Halloween 6, but this is our first hint, and I have to at least give them credit that, hey, they were obviously planning for a future already when we get to Halloween 5. So at the very least, when we get to Halloween 6, they had intention here. Like, we can already see them taking the step toward that. So it's not like the sister thing where, like, in Halloween 6, they're like backfilling. You can tell that in Halloween 5, they're setting up this idea that he is part of something bigger. Because, that's your question. Where's this tattoo come from? And how on earth did Loomis miss it all of these years?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's the thing, right? Is like that was totally unknown until now. And I mean, yes, they were setting it up, but if you watch any of the behind the scenes material, they don't know what they were setting up. They were just like, "Oh, this could be cool in the next film," but that's the next film's writer's problem. So I mean, it's just cool imagery and a mysterious character that we're introduced to halfway through this film, and then at the climax, but no one has any plan. And I mean, after this film, I mean, weren't you waiting on pins and needles for 6 years to find out the thrilling conclusion to the end of this story?
I wouldn't say pins and needles, but I would say that, of course, we then flash forward. Michael suddenly wakes up from his coma on October 30th, because why not? And of course, murders the guy that took care of him, because why not? And
very ungrateful.
Yeah, I mean, come on, dude. He obviously fed you for the last year and took care of you. I mean, Michael couldn't possibly have laid dormant there the whole time, could he?
I guess that's what it's implied, and I'm just like, so this guy kept this unconscious man in his little shack or little tent for a year and thought nothing of it.
And but at the same time, you then beg the question of, bodily functions on Michael Myers don't happen over this year or something.
At the same time, though, once we start getting into the Cult of Thorn and all this mythical nonsense, I stop thinking of him as a person.
Well, I mean, he's the boogeyman. The boogeyman is real. Even in Halloween and Halloween 2, he takes how many shots to the body and stabs in the eye and shots in the eye and stuff.
There's something when you start introducing druid cults and supernaturalism that, like, even in Halloween and Halloween 2, there's something inhuman about him, but I can't really explain to you. He still feels, quote unquote, like a man. I don't know if that makes sense. Here it's like he's almost like a spirit.
Yeah, for some reason, him not being seen. Okay, because in Halloween 4, he's been in a hospital the whole time, so it's like, okay, fine, they catheterized him, whatever, like that. I can explain that away, but it's the being in the tent thing. It's really odd. It's just really odd. Like I almost in my brain. And obviously, they weren't going to think this way back in the 80s. That we're in the fall of the slasher genre at this point is starting.
This is the year that it all falls to shed. I mean, with 89, you have Halloween 5, you have Nightmare on Elm Street 5, and you have Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan. So, all in 1 year, all in one fell swoop. Happy birthday to me, because this is my birth year, 1989.
Well, and it all falls apart. Yeah, wow, that's right. All three of them that same year. That is crazy, isn't it? Wow, the whole genre hits like a critical mass. So, like, in a sense, you almost want to forgive Halloween 5 because it's like, oh, well, you were just part of the trend. That's okay. But
well,
like,
I also feel bad, too, because like we mentioned last week, Halloween kind of got, it start late in the game in terms of these franchise films, because we had the first two, and that was the early 80s.
Right.
And we don't see Michael Myers again until 1988, and 1 year later, slashers are over, basically.
Yeah, they really slept on it. And I just think in today's environment that you wouldn't have Michael Myers in a, living in a hobo tent. You'd have him some explanation that like he's out in the woods and he's like eating raw animals and stuff like that. Like he'd be out feral waiting for the time to come back.
Yeah,
for whatever reason.
He'd switch places with a paramedic and he'd be out in the woods eating whatever.
Right. And
wait till we get to that film.
Yeah. But we also have our first exposure to this movie's mask. And masks are a thing in the Halloween series.
I'm going to say, like, it's supposed to be the same one from 4, and I'm like, the dynamite must have melted it.
Yeah, it doesn't look right, does it?
No.
Although
I
doesn't.
will say, like, as wrong as it looks, and believe me, it does look wrong, I slightly prefer this one to the fourth one, but that's just
really?
Because I don't know. There's something about that fourth one where the white just seems like too white. It feels like it's been painted.
Okay, so I see what you're saying with that. What you're basically saying is that, like, this mask at least is a little bit dirty. It seems to have a little bit of wear and tear on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. Someone described it for me the other day, and I wish I could remember what they said, but it just looks... The one in 4 just looks so strange.
It does.
And
it does. It looks almost Dayglow.
Yeah, and not that this one looks better, but at the same time, the material of the mask doesn't look so flimsy, and that said, it's not good. I'm just saying I prefer it's slightly more intimidating.
But it really is, especially going back and rewatching 4 and now rewatching 5 and everything. It's bizarre. Why is it so hard for them to get the mask right? And
it's something that they don't really solve until, I mean, the mask next week, I will say, in 6, it doesn't look bad. But they really don't get the mask looking close to the original again until, of all things, Rob Zombie's remake. Actually, it looks pretty good. And
it does.
And then in this new one, finally, they made something that looks like the Shatner mask.
Yeah, I just don't... I mean, do you think it's just a victim of just budgetary concerns? That they just... Because by this point, Michael Myers' mask is a thing you can get for your Halloween costume. I should know because I had one. And I scared the hell out of one of my cousins one time. If I've told this story before, I apologize. I'll tell a fast version of it. I used to use the mask to scare him. I would stand in a doorway wearing the mask. And, of course, it backfired on me because I could never have the mask laying out because I would be paralyzed with fear. So I always had it, shoved in the back upper corner of a closet when I wasn't wearing it or something. And there was one time I was over at his house and I forgot the mask. I had taken the mask with me to scare him and I forgot it. And his mom had hung it on the back of his chair and he woke up and the Michael Myers mask was right in his face. Because it was his desk chair by his bed. He blamed me because I had forgotten it, and his mom just didn't realize how much it could scare you. I mean, but I mean that mask that I had looked more like the original Halloween. It was a Don Post Studios mask. Gosh, if I recall correctly, it cost me about $40, and that looked more like the original mask than the one in either 4 or 5.
Yep.
And that's what you could go down and buy the damn mask. Why was this so hard?
Probably the Akaz didn't want to spend money.
I guess, but it just doesn't. I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't think they ever get it right again until, like I said, of all things, the goddamn Rob Zombie remake, which we'll talk about how much we love that film, but at least The Mask looks good.
Yes.
And finally, when they came out with the poster for this new one, it's like, finally, Jesus, we figured out how to make a credible looking mask again.
Yeah, and they did actually a really great job, because I think that they also took the initiative with this new mask, based on what we've seen, of making it look like, the way that a rubber mask is going to age over time, exposed
not to mention like
stuff.
Extreme attention to detail. I don't think you may not have noticed this, John. Just real quick sidebar: in this new trailer for Halloween 2018, there's one point where Michael Myers turns his head, and he still has the hole in his mask from when Laurie stabs him in the neck with a knitting needle. I caught that on freeze frame.
I did not see that. I'm going to go back and rewatch that trailer now, but only when it's broad daylight, because I can only watch that trailer during the daytime.
But
in all honesty,
that's the kind of attention to detail that I love.
Yeah, no, my heart warms at that thought, actually. And what's funniest to me is we've talked about the beginning of this film up to this point and The Mask. I don't know. Maybe we should cop to a subconscious desire not to cover the rest of the film, because it's pretty awful.
It's pretty awful. There are some things I do like. I mean, if we want to move into the rest of the film,
sure.
So we pick up with Jamie a year later. She's in this children's clinic after the really cool ending of Halloween 4, which we both had our problems with Halloween 4, but we both agreed that the ending was awesome.
Yep.
Too bad they don't go anywhere with it.
Yes.
So instead, she's not the new Shape. She and Michael have some sort of psychic connection, and she's mute for the first half of this film. That being said, though, I will say that of all the crap that's in this film, Danielle Harris still manages to do a good job. I never have a problem with her in either 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. She does do a fine job, especially...
In fact, if she wasn't here, I probably couldn't stand this movie at all.
Yeah, and for a child actress to play a character who is mute and still do a good enough job that you are invested in her character despite everything that's going on and going wrong with this film, is a testament to her. It absolutely is. She is a standout, and what's truly, a standout as well is, I'll never take anything away from any of the guys' performances, but Donald Pleasance, you really can tell age is becoming a factor for him at this point.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, Loomis goes off the deep end in this film. I mean,
right? He goes nuts. He just goes, and I don't know if they were trying to go for something that we're supposed to think got there subtly, but Loomis has always been a little bit unbalanced.
Yeah, he's always been eccentric, but he's wacko in this film.
Yeah, and he also seems strangely, I guess they could justify it, bloodthirsty in a sense, but the problem is they don't get there in steps, right? Like there's the switch from 4 to 5. If they had so much as a scene about him having a nervous breakdown, like he had finally, had, or we have a scene with him where he's in therapy.
And it could have been so easy too. I mean, I wish they would have explained the ending of 4 when he does have a nervous breakdown. That just broke him.
Right.
That's so easy to write.
Right.
It would explain why he basically manhandles Jamie throughout this whole film.
Yeah. Yeah. He does. And it is something where I just wrestle with it, because Pleasance, even in this role,
he's trying.
He is. He's not mailing it in. He's actually trying. And the unfortunate thing is, you look at it in retrospect, and this guy was, he's the most memorable Blofeld in the James Bond series, for Pete's sake. And you watch Halloween 5, and you just think to yourself, oh, man, there's no sort of like Alec Guinness upswing at the tail end of the career. Alec Guinness was going through a dry spell up until Star Wars, and then boom, he's Sir Alec Guinness, right? And it feels like Pleasance, his trajectory didn't get that upswing at the end. Like it feels like he's in a spot now where he is better than this material.
Oh yeah,
but he's not getting any other jobs. You know?
I mean, but like you said, I mean, so many actors at this point would just be doing this for the paycheck. And as weird as Loomis is in this film, I never think that Pleasance is not committed, because he's trying to act his ass off with this weird material.
Right. It seems as if he, as an actor, has in his head why Loomis is this way, but the script never gives us that reason that's in there.
Right, and I know he was particularly unhappy with this script, too. So, I mean, kudos to him for being ever the professional and giving it the old college try. But,
yes. Yeah, but speaking of the college try, one of the things I really have a problem with this film is, and like 4 has its problems. I'm not crazy in love with 4, but on the most part, it's shot fairly competently. I think that there is a decided slide down the scale in terms of how this film is photographed. Mm-hmm. The lighting is all wrong. The shots are just set up very
bizarre.
Messily. Yeah, and it feels, not feels, I don't want to say feels, it looks very much like a TV production.
Yes, it does.
And that always gets under my skin, especially the scenes when we finally get to the farm.
More of a TV production than something like, even a film that I like H2O H2O does look like something that was shot for the WB network at the time, but at least that film looks better than this.
Well, and the thing is, the WB, they were still shooting on film. This actually looks like it was shot on video. Is the biggest problem. That there is just something all sorts of wrong with the way this movie looks, and like it just reinforces that, for instance, we get the 2 idiot cops as I hesitate to use the term, air quotes, comic relief.
Well, can't you tell they're the comic relief, John? Because they have the whistle music behind them for some bizarre reason that totally belongs in a Halloween movie.
Oh, it totally belongs in any slasher film or anything like that, to make sure that the audience feels...
To make sure we know that they're idiots.
Yeah, or to make sure that we feel tension. Nothing communicates tension like a slide whistle. That definitely communicates that you're in a serious, tense situation.
What was the thinking behind this? I mean, I tried to read all the behind-the-scenes material, but I could not come up with a reasonable explanation for this choice. And it comes after a scene that's actually pretty tense because, at the beginning of this film, we pick up with, like I was saying, with Jamie, but we also still pick up at the very beginning with Rachel. And Rachel was a character that at least I liked. I think you were okay with her last time too. She was a nice stand-in. She got the job done. She was, for a new Laurie Strode, she did pretty well. And at the beginning of this film, when she's being stalked around her house, it's actually not the worst stalking sequence I've seen in a Halloween film. But then she runs outside, she calls the cops, and then immediately whatever tension was set up was broken by those 2 idiots and their music.
I will go ahead and say it that this is the one Halloween movie that feels the most like a Friday the 13th movie.
Yes, that's the biggest issue I have, because I mean, right after the whole thing with the cops come in, and we've already discussed how much we hated that, 5 minutes later, I don't know if Ellie Cornell pissed somebody off, but we say bye-bye to Rachel. Yeah. And what a useless way possible. But, I could forgive that. It's, you could do the shock value of the survivor, the last one gets killed early on. But, you would hope that they would replace her with some people that are interesting. And, God, the human cast, aside from Jamie in this film, is what I have the biggest problem with.
I hesitate to call them a cast. I honestly think, as we're discussing, it looks like a TV production. The writing is on par with Friday the 13th Part 3 and the comical hippies, pot smokers that they have.
Those characters were better than half of the people in this film.
And that's the thing where I would almost love to corner the director at some point, if it were at all possible, and say, you were doing this as a parody, weren't you? This was supposed to be a gag.
And we talked about this last time too, John. This is, for me, what always separated Halloween from those other two franchises, is that as off the rails as some of them could be, especially when we got to like 4, the humans were always consistently good. And we talked about this last time. They're always people that you root for. Whether it's Laurie Strode, whether it's Jamie Lloyd, or whether it's Rachel Carruthers, I cared about what happened to them. I mean, in this one, like I said, aside from Jamie, who, thank God, is still alive, I don't care about a single one of these new people.
Because they are such stock slasher characters. I agree.
Well, they're stock slasher. The rest of them are stock slasher characters, and let's just talk about the elephant in the room. They're stock slasher characters, and then Rachel dies, and we get replaced with Tina Williams.
I don't want to talk about Tina.
We have to. She's the main focus of this film.
I don't want to talk about Tina, though. I really don't want to talk. But yeah, Tina. Yeah. But to your point, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you do it? If you had the original, if you had Rachel back, why wouldn't you just keep that thread? Why wouldn't you have the consistency? Why wouldn't you have? There is a seeming rush in this movie. I almost wonder if it's something where it's Dominique Girard something, but I almost wonder if this director wanted to put their own stamp on it so bad. They wanted to do, this is my Halloween movie. And that is, maybe that's what goes wrong. Maybe there was a desire to just bring in but there's such a basic, I think that Tina is the clearest communication from the director, from the script, from everybody, that they've lost the idea of what a Halloween movie is supposed to be. What set it apart? Yeah,
I mean, aside from the fact that it's one of the most annoying characters in the whole franchise until we get to part 8. I just don't understand why there was this, other than shock value, to get rid of Rachel so quickly. Because, I mean, she was a major character last time, and she's maybe in 15 minutes of this movie. And I would say for shock value, but it doesn't shock anyone besides us. Jamie doesn't even know that she's missing until she discovers her body 10 minutes before the film is over.
Right.
It would have been different if there was this whole, like, Rachel is missing, where's Rachel, throughout this whole film, but no one notices that she's gone.
If it was like the call to action, right? We got to find her, and then it's like a whole thing, and they go through and I think that also is an indication of the inability to build tension. Is what you're tapping into there. If they're looking for her through the film, you don't even need a big body count or the party at the farm or the 2 cops. If you have this character-driven small piece that's all tension, Michael's out there. It's almost like, in a sense, and it's in my brain because I just saw The Predator, but it's almost like the original Predator, where the monster's out there, but we can't quite find him, and he keeps picking people off, and we're looking for our missing friend. You have a real, and you're already in the woods. So why not have, like, you could have saved money while making a more interesting film. Instead, we get Tina, we get the party at the farm, which is just, the party at the farm is so god awful bad. It's so ridiculously awful and out of place. And it's something that they come back to, of course, in Halloween 6, where that this whole, we're going to party. Who cares if there's a mass murderer out? does anybody in this town have any parents who can exercise any authority over their lives at any point?
Except for like sheriffs,
Right.
The sheriff last one with the daughter, and then of course Sheriff Brackett with Annie. We never see any parents. Okay, I take it back. We see the Carruthers in the last film, but even they are missing for most of it, and they're nowhere to be seen here. I guess once maybe that's understandable. Once you stab the mother, they don't want anything to do with you. But at the same time, Rachel at the beginning is like, Mom sends her love. So apparently they've forgiven that very quickly.
Yeah, yes, that's true. I think that there's the problem is this, right? Is we can sit here and we can peel apart Halloween 5. And there are plenty of people who will say, oh, well, it's a slasher movie. What do you expect? But that really it keeps coming back to the same point that Halloween was always supposed to be different. It was supposed to be more serious. It was supposed to be more gravity, more tension, more terror. I mean, the whole thing springs from a movie that was, basically constructed as an homage to Hitchcock.
Yeah, dare I say, like, Halloween up until this point has always been more story and character based than it has been about the kills. I mean, the kills have gotten ramped up ever since Halloween 2, but like we keep saying, it was mostly about the story of Michael Myers going after his family, and the doctor that is this Van Helsing that wouldn't stop chasing him. Yeah, and it was never supposed to be. It was I never got those Friday the 13th vibes. I mean, I watched Friday the 13th, and I watched some of the later Nightmare on Elm Streets, and I can have fun, but I acknowledge that they're not story or character driven. Halloween is always different, and I mean, I guess that's why when we get to H2O, I'm much more forgiving because they finally go back to that. But we'll talk about that later.
It's very much also, I think. Sort of like getting at why I've sort of had blinders on, like, with the Saw movies and Hostel and stuff like that. It was always in my head because I was, I'm saying it's because I was a Halloween fan, that I always said, oh no, modern horror is way different than it used to be. But going back and seeing these movies now with eyes wide open, I do realize that Halloween was just different. And it was, this genre has always been, to use the common phrase, torture porn.
Right.
You're just waiting for the kill. You're waiting for Freddy to kill somebody gruesomely. You're waiting for Jason to show up and cut off somebody's head with a machete or stick an arrow through their throat. And it's really kind of dispiriting, but it really calls out how Halloween has lost its way with 5. And the thing is, talking about 5, right? I know I was a little bit hard on 4 when we were talking about it, but 5 really recasts that whole thing to look back on it and say, well, it's not as bad as this.
Right. I mean, like you said, this is the first time in the whole series where this is how you know when series jump the shark, too, right? It's because in this one, it's the first time in any of these Halloween films that I'm actually rooting for Michael Myers to kill people.
Right, and it's the first time where we really, I mean, the murder that happens during the sex scene is really the moment at which I think I just mentally completely disconnect, and I'm not even scared anymore. Because it's like, you can keep it up as, like you said, the stalking, Rachel's there, and you go, okay, well, what's going on here? I don't like Tina. But
you didn't get checked out when Tina's boyfriend, the Fonz, gets killed with the plow in his head?
Amazingly, I was still trying to stick with it. But it's really that scene in the barn just really is, and not just because it's clumsily done, poorly lit, no tension, but also because the blood looks like bright red stage blood. Yeah. Like it looks like production quality I would expect from like a student film at best, right? And like a student film that's not getting an A. Let's put it that way. Like this is the student film from the kid where C's get degrees sort of thing.
Yeah, no, it's very very pedestrian.
Yeah. And just the movie never And I won't lie, I'm not a fan of the way Michael moves in this.
No, just because
it
I like
doesn't
the
work.
mask more. Like the acting on Michael has not gotten better.
You mean you weren't even touched by the scene where you saw a tear roll down his cheek?
Let's save that for later when we talk about the climax, because that was, speaking of something else that the movie's trailer and marketing lied to you about. It promised us, like, this is where we finally get to see Michael unmasked. Never mind that we saw him unmasked at the end of the first one.
Yep,
But-
that's very true. Well, that's a marketing team that doesn't understand. Even though, you see Jason unmasked. Jason got unmasked in like every damn film.
Yeah, that was the gimmick, is what is he going to look like this time?
Right, exactly. And so I'd say you just see more creep over from Friday the 13th into this one.
Right. But
Where,
anyway, I mean, there's the whole, I was basically from the point, because I'll give this movie some credit, from the point where Rachel dies up and through the death in the barn, like you're saying, I'm checked out of this film.
Yeah.
I really am disgusted with the fact that it's now just a Friday the 13th sequel. I pretty much hate everyone on the screen aside from Jamie and Loomis. As wacko as Loomis is, he's still Donald Pleasant, so I still have some sort of affection for him.
Yeah.
But I am just so thoroughly disinterested in everything, and some of the stuff that's supposed to be tension building is just silly. Like the whole thing about, it's awfully convenient that Tina's boyfriend is also named Michael, so that when Michael takes his place and puts on his mask and she's calling him Michael, it's supposed to be ironic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But I'm just so checked out. I will say my interest in the film starts to come back. It never comes back to where I would call this a good film. But once Jamie starts talking again and decides to be in the movie instead of just being at the hospital, when she comes to the party and gets chased finally by the car and everything, as ridiculous as it is that she's outrunning a car. A character that I care about is at least in danger again. So I'm back watching it, somewhat interested, and then the highlight of the movie for me, in terms of at least something tense, is Jamie's whole sequence in the house with the laundry chute and everything, which I think is done as poorly as a lot of stuff in this film is done, and it's not like it's amazing. But again, it's someone in danger that I care about, and Danielle Harris is still trying.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the laundry chute isn't half bad. It's just I think that,
like I said, it doesn't save the movie for me, but at least I come back into it a little bit when Jamie decides to be in it.
Yeah, I think that over time, every time I've gone back and rediscussed it or rewatched it, 5 just takes more of a beating from me mentally.
Yeah.
And I know we keep making reference to 6 and saying we'll get to it, and we will get to it, both cuts next time. But like, there's this odd sort of flip that's happened as I've gotten older, where each time that I've revisited 6, the producer's cut, I've liked it more. And I found more to pull from it, where I'm a little bit more forgiving each time.
Yeah.
Whereas 5, I'm less and less forgiving every time I watch it.
Yeah, I used to. I'm very conflicted now, because I watched this movie for this review, and I also watched. I haven't seen the producer's cut yet. I watched the theatrical version of 6 for the next time's review, and I always was of the opinion that 6 was much worse than this, and in many ways it is. But at the same time, I was more interested watching 6, even the theatrical version, than I was watching this film. And 6 doesn't feel like a Halloween film, but when we get to it, it feels so bizarre. At least that one is just like enticingly bug nuts, whereas this film is just so rote. Yes,
I think you're spot on with that. That this is rote. This is part of the death of the horror, this stage of the horror genre, and 6 is where they start to at least try something radically different.
Now,
And,
6, like I said,
you know.
6 is bad. Like, this whole, when we get to it, the whole Cult of Thorn thing is...
I'll be interested to discuss the producer's cut with you. I really will.
I mean, I have to rewatch it again. I remember liking certain aspects of it. The thing is that Halloween 6 has both versions, I think, have terrible third acts.
The third act in the let's not get ahead of ourselves. But
come on,
but,
throwing down the rooms to stop him is pretty lame.
We'll save the discussion for next time. Coming back to 5, it's just so unsatisfying at the end in every possible way.
Well, because it's a big cheat. So, like, I mean, first of all, just side note, when the hell did the Michael Myers house turn from the little suburbia house to a gothic mansion? Number
yes,
one.
That's a good question. That's a very good question.
I mean, talk about, like, the exact opposite of what I was talking about with Halloween 2018, the attention to detail. These people just didn't care. They wanted a bigger house to have a chase scene in. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's an accurate statement. Very, very accurate statement. They were, coming back to it, I don't know what possessed them.
I mean, that's the thing is, like, with the mask, with the house, it's like, did they think we wouldn't notice?
I'm guessing so. It's really interesting because, home video explosion doesn't really happen till mid-'80s. And I would say...
But this is 89. I mean, Blockbuster's around. Surely we've rewatched the original at this point.
I honestly... the way I remember the era is, VHS was there, but you didn't really... It wasn't the same culture of repetitive viewing as it wasn't as widespread as it was for these. Now, that being said, you're absolutely right. We had our video editions. We owned our copies.
And plus, wasn't like they would replay. This is the era where they would replay the old movies on TV all the time, so you could catch it on broadcast.
But the flip side of that is that my mindset, my argument is that horror movies were the last ones to sort of catch up to the idea that you were having rewatches and people more familiar with your series. And what I mean by that is you used to be able to get away with these sort of set piece change outs. The mask was different or the house looks different. It was easier to get away with that stuff before the dawn of home video, right? Because it was harder for somebody to catch it. So I would say that what you're seeing here is a transitional moment before they've pieced together that everybody can see these movies really easily. The ones that came before to hold them up against it. And especially now, like I probably know the layout of the Myers house as well as any house I grew up in.
Oh, I could walk. I could walk that entire house.
Yeah, and so if you have something where you have a director come in and you're still in a mindset where you're not used to people with the repeat viewing coming, like it just seems like it's a victim of that, of the mindset not having caught up yet. Yeah. So
no, you're right, and admittedly, I am colored on this issue because, like I said, 89 is the year that I was born. So a few years later, I'm used to that blockbuster culture mentality where people just go rent movies. So, like, of course, we've seen it over and over again. But no, I fully acknowledge that wasn't the case. It's just so bizarre that the Myers house turned from that house into this one. It's just something that I can't get over as an aesthetic choice.
Well, I mean, just within the own series, though, right? It would have been easy for them to sort of like mix it up for Halloween too, but they don't.
Right. But the thing is it just goes against the nature of the films too, because this is supposed to be suburbia. This does not look like a suburban house.
Very true. Very, if you wanted to be forgiving, and actually to speak to that point, you got the farm and the party and all of that stuff. If anything, the nature of Haddonfield has gone from, as you point out, suburbia This feels more like an exurbs sort of place where you could find a house like that, or within arguable walking distance of a farm. And so, like, Haddonfield is supposed to feel like a small little Midwestern community, put together, as opposed to something you would find in like Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Where you have these big things.
I'll give it credit. At least it's not White Trashville yet until the Rob Zombie films.
Well, Zombie is, of course, his worldview creeps in to his remakes for sure.
Yeah, I just love how all of a sudden, though, like, the entire Midwest is now a meth lab in those films.
Well, arguably, you could say that there are sections of the Midwest that have struggled with that as well.
Yes, I know.
So.
I just like every person in that town in those films is despicable.
Well, we'll get to that. Maybe Halloween 5 we could view as a precursor of the idea of, although on Zombie's part it's very intentional, it's unintentional here that we're now rooting for people. Well, maybe it's intentional because it's a knockoff sort of thing, but this before Zombies movies is the oddity of encountering characters that you don't care about, or that you don't mind getting, just offed.
This isn't the only oddity. We still got Resurrection to deal with before we get there.
That one doesn't even count in my brain. That one is the ultimate anomaly.
As much as I try to like repress that out of memory, it still exists.
That is true.
But yeah, like we were saying earlier, sorry that we went off on some tangent, but this whole ending is such a cheat because, okay, speaking of unintentionally funny, the sight of however old he was, Donald Pleasance beating Michael Myers with a 2x4.
Yes. Yes. When you can actually
funny.
And you can actually tell that he's having physical trouble.
Yeah.
With the choreography of the scene, which is unfortunate and seems like I'm making a cheap joke at his age or something. I'm not.
It's just like, no.
It's asking your actor to do something they can't really do.
I don't want to make fun of Donald Pleasance. I really don't. But this whole scene with him beating him with a 2x4 and saying "die, die, die" is hilarious.
Yeah, it is, and then it sets up the
cheat ending that I keep referring to.
Okay, so point blank question: worst ending of the series?
No, I don't think so. Only because it does set up some kind of mystery that I'm mildly interested to see what happens. Worst ending of the series is either got to be Halloween Resurrection, which is just a cheap jump scare, or Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which we'll talk about when we get there.
Yeah, we'll talk about. Well, you know what? To be fair, I set Zombies movies sort of like on their own timeline. It's almost like the Kelvin timeline for Star Trek. I'm like, this is original Star Trek timeline, and like Zombies is like Kelvin timeline. So they're in their own little bubble off to the side.
If we take that out, then the cheap jump scare that ends Resurrection is more lame than this, but this is pretty lame. Yeah.
I think that the cheap jump scare with Resurrection doesn't come as a surprise given the quality of that entire exercise. Whereas this, again, to speak to the way it's photographed, I mean, the jail set looks... it looks worse than it looks like an old like Doctor Who BBC 1970s set.
Right.
Where it's like, did you guys like put this together in a day or something? Like I'm not in any way attacking anybody's skill set, right? These people are professionals. They know what they're doing. People are at different stages in their career. But it's very obvious from this that whoever they got to work together, like I'd love to have been on the set. Was the director arguing with the DP? Was the DP just like, screw it, I'm here, I'm for, it's almost like, it's almost like it was pro bono work where it's like, all right, I got to be here. I got to I got to do my union stuff here. So, just turn the camera on, whatever, guys, I don't care. Like, I would love to have been on the set to get the vibe of what was going on, because so much of this feels like, honestly, a crew that did not support the director, or vice versa, or everybody just didn't care.
Well, you know what this is, John, is that this came out less than a year after 4. This is rushed. This is a prime example of why you don't make these films year after year. Friday the 13th could get away with it because it was always kind of cheap and gimmicky to begin with. When you try to do that with a story-based, more like we were talking about with Halloween, it suffers. And they I watched a documentary on the making of 4, 5, and 6, and they all admit, the actors and the ACODs and everything, they went into production on this almost immediately after 4 came out, and they didn't even have a script yet.
Yeah, well, it definitely shows. That's for sure. So in essence, Halloween 5, because we have to wait so long, as we're wrapping up, we have to wait so long for 6. This essentially kills a franchise that just got rebooted the year before. They jump right in and then kill it.
They're very good at doing that, because it happens with 5. It happens again with Resurrection, because that got, H2O, like it or dislike it, did reboot the franchise again and give it new life, and then they kill it off with Resurrection. And as much as I didn't like, the zombie films, that first one did give it some sort of vitality, and then that quickly got killed off with Halloween 2. So they're very good about this.
I guess we're both glad that it seems that 2018 is being treated as a one shot.
I hope so. We'll see what happens. I mean,
it'll depend on how successful it is, I guess.
And I think it'll be very successful. But at least with this one, as opposed to some of the other ones, I feel like they're in the hands of filmmakers and writers who actually care, which is something that I can't say about this film in particular.
But what I can say, and I definitely will underline, and this is a theme we keep coming back to, and that I keep coming back to, is I think I was thinking about this when I was talking with Craig some time back or something, but like Halloween 5, the Halloween series, horror in general, you're a horror fan, I'm a horror fan. I do sincerely believe that other franchise fans have something to learn from how horror fans approach their franchises.
Yeah.
We can sit here and curb stomp Halloween 5, but I'm still a Halloween fan.
Yeah.
I'm not in any way attacking or besmirching anybody in it. I'm just being honest with my opinion. You are too. And we're still fans. And it's not a negativity or positivity contest. It is honesty. And we still love it. And we're still going to come back to it, and I'm sure I'm going to rewatch Halloween 5 again at some point in the future.
Yeah, this won't be the last time I watch this film.
Right.
I mean, because I'll even be honest with you, I'll watch Halloween 5 10 more times before I, rewatch Halloween Resurrection. This is not the worst of the series.
Right, exactly. But we remain fans, we remain civil, and we can all disagree. There's got to be somebody out there who loves Halloween 5. God bless them.
That's
cool.
Everybody has different tastes, but this film is just, it's so blah. which is why I mean, I'm more excited to talk about Halloween 6, even though I really have problems with that film, because at least that film is like a fascinating failure. This isn't even that fascinating.
I would say that Halloween 5 ranks as one of those types of movies where if somebody said, "Oh, I don't like to watch horror movies; they scare me," I'd show them this as like the way to sort of
scary.
ease you into but it'll ease you into the waters. It'll teach you there's nothing to be afraid of,
right?
And sort of like get you out there swimming with the better stuff, as it were. But if people want to debate with you questions of taste in horror films, where can they find you?
They can find me at mhansen0207 HANSEN, talking about all things Halloween. It's going to be interesting next month because I'm already planning to go to see the new movie in theaters with a bunch of law school friends. But there are some people among this group that I'm going with who haven't seen the original Halloween, so I'm hosting a little party the week before the new one comes out to show them the original Halloween. So it's going to be a fun month, October.
Awesome. That is fantastically awesome. And of course, if you want to find me, I am Kessel Junkie, KESSELJUNKIE on Twitter and other social media places of interest. And you can also find me here on the network co-hosting Aggressive Negotiations, a Star Wars podcast with Matthew Rushing, and floating out there in the breeze on Words with Nerds with my pal Craig. So until next time, remember, you can't kill the boogeyman.
And get the shrooms ready for part 6.
That's going to be an interesting conversation for sure.